Application of the Eightfold Path in Life. Right speech. Welcome back everyone to Mind Podcast. The Mid-Autumn Festival, also known as the Children's Festival in Chinese and Vietnamese culture, is a time when parents show more care for their children, seen as both a responsibility and a commitment. Across the world, there are complaints about child labor. Children who should be enjoying the love and care of their parents, guided into schools to learn from teachers, and trained in moral values to become independent and useful for themselves and others later in life, are instead burdened with adult responsibilities to provide for themselves and their family. The Mid-Autumn Festival should not be merely understood as a time when parents give cakes and lanterns to their children. These tasks should be done regularly every day. Traditional games, support, and means for the psychological and physical development of children, crucial. The education provided by parents to children is essential. Most children today dislike harsh, critical, and stern words from adults. Therefore, speech is seen as an art of communication. When the ears are open, heart will deeply feel. Children can sense the heart, and parents will find it easier to guide and educate their children. Right speech, the art of happy communication. Each component of the Eightfold Path plays an important role. Right speech is not only about communication with oneself, but also with others. Communication is always a two-way street. Even in situations where one of the two people has lost the ability to speak or hear, communication still occurs in a very natural way. We still have body language. Communication never ceases. In cases of impasse between spouses, between parents and children, or between siblings, communication still takes place. We do not pay attention to communication skills. Our loving, caring words for someone who deserves it might sometimes bring sadness instead of joy. When analyzing right speech in the Eightfold Path, we gain the key experience to help ourselves and others overcome obstacles, whether they are like an iceberg above or below the waterline in social relations. Right speech in the Four Noble Truths is like the fourth precept all Buddhists are encouraged to practice and includes four aspects. First, stating the truth. Second, speaking words that build and unite. Third, speaking words that are cultured and respectful. Fourth, speaking words that are beneficial and valuable. Most people, if not careful, may think the fourth precept is just about not lying. However, this neglects the other three important aspects of communication. The declaration of truth is the first step. Without the other three aspects, communication is considered blocked. In the declaration of truth, the Buddha wanted everyone to respect the person they are communicating with, whether directly or indirectly. What we say should never be fabricated, making up something that does not exist, or turning something that does exist into nothing. We're telling tales like turtles with fur, rabbits with horns, or talking about things that never happened. Embellishing or misrepresenting things contrary to their true nature diminishes the credibility of the speaker. Joking and playing around can lead to a loss of trust, so that when you speak the truth, no one believes you. Many people think that joking doesn't hurt anyone. Legally, we may not be at fault, but morally, it's not right, and the consequences for ourselves and others can sometimes be significant. Price of joking. When visiting the Great Wall of China, tourists are told the story of a powerful king who loved a beautiful woman who rarely smiled. The king, wanting to make her smile, took her to the Great Wall. At various intervals along the wall, there were watchtowers equipped with firearms and kerosene for lighting fires. When enemies approached, the guards would light fires in the towers. Seeing the flames from the capital, the reinforcements would rush to the king's aid. The king thought this was the best way to make his lover smile and ordered the towers to be set on fire. Soldiers immediately gathered to protect the king, and the generals, surprised and anxious, rushed to the scene. Upon arrival, they found the king leisurely enjoying himself with no enemies in sight. The generals, astonished, knelt before the king and then left in discontent. The king continued to enjoy his time with the beautiful woman. A few days later, real enemies attacked, and when the king ordered the fires to be lit, no one came to his aid because they thought he was joking. Clearly, staging a false enemy attack just for amusement can be seen as a form of communication. It's akin to signaling that the enemy is coming and calling for help. When we convey information that is not true, our credibility diminishes to the point where, at some point, people, even if they still like us, come confused, not knowing whether we are serious or joking. After the 9/11 attacks in the United States, aviation laws were amended so that anyone who jokes about having a bomb or being a terrorist on a plane is not only fined, but could also face several years in prison. According to security laws, when someone reports or claims there is a bomb endangering lives, the plane cannot take off, or if it's already airborne, it must land immediately. The harm of joking is hard to measure. Once caught joking, even 100 truthful statements thereafter may not be believed. Words of harmony. When interacting with people whose personalities we do not understand, we risk losing friendships, family bonds, and essential social connections needed for the happiness and well-being of all. The second aspect of right speech is speaking words of harmony and unity. We should avoid saying negative things about one side to the other, causing discord where there was once harmony, turning unity into division, friendship into conflict, and peace into opposition. Many people, though well-intentioned, lack method, experience, and knowledge, turning into gossips. Men become gossipers, and older people become chief gossipers. In Vietnamese culture, the term ba tam, gossiping woman, is used instead of om tam, gossiping man, likely because women tend to gossip more than men. What we focus on is the number 8 in Vietnamese, represented by 2 connected circles, symbolizing involvement in other people's affairs, talking back and forth in all directions, which entraps like a handcuff that is difficult to escape. Buddhist precepts advise monks not to engage in matchmaking. When things go well, no one remembers. When they go wrong, blame is placed. In business too, connections can lead to entanglements. Most gossip causes division. What we do not know to be true should not be eagerly spread. Doing so leads to many consequences, and the degree of division caused can be like a glass of water shattered. Though it may be put back together, it is no longer aesthetically pleasing, safe, or hygienic. Better to remain silent or cautious in speech than to speak hastily. Once trust is lost, repairing it is very difficult. Relationships built over 30 years, 20 years, 10 years, or even 5 to 7 years can be destroyed in an instant by a double-edged word. Human psychology is sometimes contradictory. Few remember the good, but many remember the bad forever. Hundreds of beneficial words may be forgotten, but a single slight can be carried to the grave. Buddhists should avoid such behavior. Many people still have this habit, but we should not fall into the trap of divisive speech or double-tongued words to avoid facing legal or karmic consequences. Words of culture. The concept of cultured speech is understood beyond its literal meaning as avoiding vulgar language. Vulgarity includes cursing, using offensive language towards one's own parents or anyone else's, with words everyone knows. Most vulgar language is directed at parents or grandparents, whether one's own or others, and such words spread quickly. In poor working-class neighborhoods with limited access to education, people often pick up the habit of using vulgar language, with loud, crude speech seen as normal behavior. People with low cultural awareness who want to assert themselves as tough characters tend to use harsher language. Saying words cost nothing, so choose them carefully, suggests that how we express ourselves is very important, and the way we convey a message has great meaning. In moments of anger or stress, we should limit our speech because we lose control of our emotions. In reality, we speak out of anger, and angry words make us slaves to our own emotions. This trait destroys happiness in social relationships. Vows of curses and oaths are taboo. Some people, out of hatred, curse others. May you be hit by a train on the road. If that person gets run over by a car, I'll offer a bunch of bananas. If you leave my house, I'll celebrate, and so on. All such words are considered malicious speech. These people are living in the fire of anger, turning to ashes with nothing left. Some fathers, mothers, brothers, or sisters in moments of despair say things like, "When I die, don't come to see me," or "When your father dies, don't come to see his face." Such statements violate the precept of right speech. To avoid this, we must train our tone in communication. What we write may not be problematic, but when spoken, it can irritate or upset the listener. For example, writing, "What would you like to eat?" "I'll cook it for you," shows care from a wife to her husband or a sibling to another. The recipient feels content. But if this is said with a harsh tone, "What do you want? I'll cook it for you," although the words are the same, the tone changes the listener's reaction entirely. The tone reflects the attitude of the heart. Paying attention to the expression of tone makes our speech cultured. Maintaining calm in situations, even when others speak harshly, unfairly, or maliciously, brings happiness and peace. Those untrained in mindfulness, when hearing harsh words, may experience high blood pressure, loss of appetite, insomnia, heart problems, and other complications. Speaking beautiful words, what the Buddha called words of loving kindness, with compassion, containing the substance of love and understanding, benefits both the speaker and the listener. Speaking with mindfulness. Fourth point is to speak words of value and meaning. This is something most of us struggle with and rarely pay attention to. The Buddha was a person who spoke little, but whenever he spoke, it was of great benefit. The Buddha trained his disciples, especially monks, to speak less, not out of laziness, but to avoid idle talk. Laziness in speech is a bad habit. There are many good things we know, but when asked, we remain silent, becoming selfish. Or some people know nothing, so they just sit quietly, not speaking to avoid showing their ignorance. In diplomacy, speaking less can sometimes be advantageous. In the inner life, speaking less and sinking too deeply into the unconscious can cause emotional repression, leading to apathy, inferiority, sadness, and even despair. Speaking less in the spirit of the Buddha's teaching means speaking with mindfulness. Annoying things do not linger in our ears. They are completely flushed out, leaving no trace in the mind. Suppressed feelings need to be transformed through the practice of mindfulness. Scriptures call it holy silence, or silence in meditation. The silence of saints in meditation is a transformative silence. It differs from the silence of someone who, while not taking revenge immediately, is secretly planning retaliation. Such silence is like tasting honey while lying on thorns, plotting revenge. Holding on to resentment like that slowly destroys oneself. The one holding the grudge may or may not eventually die, but the person who holds on to it kills themselves little by little. A Buddhist, when speaking, should speak good, righteous, and valuable words, not to elevate oneself to make others weary of them. Speaking less helps avoid errors. Speaking less gives us the opportunity to reflect on ourselves more. Speaking less allows us to invest in the depth of our inner life. Speaking less in tandem with meditation and mindfulness helps release all repressed feelings, sorrow, suffering, worry, and anxiety. Such speaking less is beneficial. When we do speak, it should be certain that our words, if they have not yet borne fruit, will blossom, not pleasing everyone, but still being useful in some way. In such situations we should speak. Some people have the habit of speaking without knowing what they are saying, while others, who normally say nothing, at some point turn into chatterboxes, talking incessantly. Or when some matter is revealed, they feel the need to share everything to show their knowledge. The Anguttara Nikaya lists 5 criteria for virtuous or right speech. These 5 criteria support and complement each other. If we practice them well, the value of communication will be enhanced. One of the 5 criteria is speaking the truth at the right time. Speaking the truth at the right time. The Buddha advised us to speak the truth. Speaking the truth establishes credibility in speech. Speaking the truth prevents confusion for others. Speaking the truth prevents misunderstandings. Speaking the truth reveals the value of truth. However, depending on the situation, the truth may be revealed only to a certain extent. For example, a patient afraid of death, without the psychological resilience to endure, may be nearing the end of their life due to a terminal illness. Yet experienced doctors may choose not to tell them the truth to avoid worsening their condition. Time and psychological factors play a significant role in the progression of illness. For instance, someone with liver cirrhosis in stages 16 to 35, according to the scale used by American hospitals, may need a liver transplant. Doctors will explain that after the transplant, the new liver functions like the original, and if lucky, the patient may live for another 2 or 3 years. But if the work they are doing requires a few more years to complete, they might die immediately upon learning the truth, disrupting their work. The doctors explain the worst-case scenario, the best-case scenario, and ask the patient to sign a waiver, agreeing not to sue if complications arise, even death. Some people want to know the truth clearly to arrange their remaining affairs in the final years of their life, making the truth necessary. Otherwise, they maintain an illusion with assumptions that are not grounded in reality. The truth may hurt, but it's better to speak it sooner rather than later, to avoid long-term resentment. We must consider which situations require truth and which do not. Speaking the truth is not always beneficial for both the speaker and the listener. The Buddha taught us to speak at the right time. Speaking at the right time creates a comfortable mindset for acceptance, listening, change, and the therapeutic effect. For instance, if a wife knows her husband is unfaithful or drinks excessively and neglects his responsibilities, confronting him while he's talking to his friends will only make him angry. He may not admit his faults, even if he's wrong, because the timing is off. Or if he's stressed from work, and you bring up an issue when he needs a moment to relax, your words will backfire because the timing is not right. To persuade someone, you must know when they are psychologically open and receptive. The right time depends on the individual's personality. In diplomatic relations with partners, having this skill ensures success and gains people's hearts. If someone is overwhelmed and you bombard them with words, they may become apathetic. This attitude can lead to stubbornness, where they reject everything. Even if you're speaking the truth, if the timing is wrong, it can be harmful not only to yourself but also to others. The attitude of speaking involves two things: speaking gently and speaking with compassion. Gentleness is about being soft and speaking without provoking, without disrupting harmony, without causing irritation, without making others feel tired and tense. Speaking sarcastically, mockingly, or cursing should be avoided. A gentle attitude is essential. Gentleness teaches us that we cannot speak like a judge passing a sentence. We cannot act like a patriarch who thinks of themselves as superior, who speaks as the boss, who believes they are important. They speak and expect those below to listen without objection, without the right to build or comment. Such attitudes lead to daily conflict. Speaking with compassion, knowing that the listener has obstacles and difficulties, should guide our speech. We should speak to help others open up and achieve good results. He'll not speak just for the sake of speaking. A person of depth, when the time is not ripe, may pretend nothing is wrong, and when it's necessary to speak, they do so with the right attitude. According to the Buddha, if speaking does not bring benefit or happiness, we should refrain from speaking. If a child has done something wrong, feeling embarrassed, guilty, and avoiding their parents, we shouldn't speak immediately. Understanding that they are troubled, pressuring them to talk, is ineffective. We must determine the purpose of our speech, adjusting our attitude to be gentle and kind. Speaking should be realistic, speaking truthfully, clearly analyzing so that clarity is present and misunderstandings are minimized to the greatest extent. The remaining elements that support right speech or virtuous speech should be present. The most important criterion is benefit. If our words do not benefit anyone, they are in vain. The more we speak, more credibility we lose. People who talk too much often make mistakes or missteps. The saying goes, talk too long and you talk poorly. We must know to whom we are speaking. Identifying that purpose gives value to our words. Situations when to speak. The middle-length discourses outline 6 situations, identifying when to speak and when not to. Each situation includes 3 details, with each detail considered a criterion and a measure. By studying these 6 situations, we can overcome weaknesses in speech, mistakes in communication, and the counterproductive effects of speech, which sometimes negatively impact both the speaker and the listener. 1. First situation. Something we know to be untrue, if spoken, does not serve any purpose, and the listener is completely disinterested. The Buddha advises not to speak. If it's untrue, without purpose, and disliked by the listener, what's the point of speaking? Many people enjoy making things up. They create stories that do not exist and speak as if they are involved. They know their words have no value to anyone, yet they still insist on speaking, even though the listener dislikes being falsely accused. This is a grave mistake with serious consequences for intentional distortion. Global law stipulates that slander and defamation, causing harm to others, are serious crimes. Recently, the French president sued the former French prime minister and several journalists for publishing false information about him. Nowadays, some monks are suing those who have spoken falsely about them. In the past, most monks remained silent, but now they sue to clarify the truth. Some say, "Why should monks sue? Isn't it too egotistical?" Others say the opposite. The involved party knows their situation best. Those with goodwill look at things from the root, understanding the origin and progress, finding a way to sympathize. Those without goodwill can find fault in anything. According to Buddhist precepts, a person wronged who sues to clear their name is not doing anything wrong. In the scriptures, the Buddha teaches that if someone says something false about us, we should, if requested, clarify that, "This is not part of me, I am not the author of it." The Buddha's teaching is clear. Doing so asserts our truthfulness, and whether the listener accepts it is up to them. Our duty is fulfilled. This contrasts with the saying in the Bhavang Samadhi scripture, "Unjust accusations do not need to be defended. Defending them is cowardly." Some people say a few sentences and resolve a problem, but out of fear of appearing weak, they hold on to the grudge for decades, with some taking it to their grave. 2-second situation. Words that are true, 100% correct, without distortion or embellishment, but when spoken, serve no purpose, have no value to anyone, and are disliked by the listener. The Buddha advises not to speak. This situation is easy to misunderstand, can be interpreted both negatively and positively. The Buddha made it clear that sharing through communication is meant to bring happiness and peace to the listener. A historical story from China tells of a cruel king, harsh towards his people, with many ethnic groups rising in rebellion and being captured. King held a traveling court, requiring the criminals to acknowledge the king's mercy to be spared the death penalty. Otherwise, they would be executed as an example. A righteous man was asked to speak his last words. He cursed the king in his native language, speaking calmly and confident. The king, observing his face and demeanor, felt pleased and asked for a translation. The translator said, "Before he dies, the criminal admits his guilt, hoping the king will show mercy and pardon him. Everyone makes mistakes. May the king be generous." King, hearing this, felt relieved and spared the man's life. Clearly, the translator in this situation spoke falsely, but with the purpose of saving a life. Although the translation was incorrect and the words were lies, they still had a good value. The words saved a person, reduced ethnic tensions between the king's supporters and opponents, and eased the conflict. If the translator had spoken the truth, saying, "He cursed the king, deserving punishment," it would have fueled the fire, spreading ethnic conflict quickly and causing widespread disruption. Security would be greatly challenged. Peace would not have been achieved. In this case, the Buddha advises speaking words that lead to good outcome. 3. Third situation. Words that are true, with a purposeful value, but when spoken, are disliked by the listener. The Buddha advises still to speak. At least 2 factors align with the truth. The truth has a positive value and purpose. Whether the listener accepts it or not is another matter. In this situation, we speak the truth, even if it is unpleasant, but the value of benefit outweighs it, so we should speak. 4. Fourth situation. Declaring words that are not true, even with good intentions, but when spoken, are disliked by the listener, yet some still speak. This situation involves speaking falsehoods with no purpose, and is disliked by everyone. It means creating stories with no benefit to anyone, causing irritation and frustration. Words like this lead to destruction and harm everywhere. Enthusiasm without wisdom leads to damage. 5. Fifth situation. Words that are true, serving no purpose, yet are liked by the listener. The Buddha advises against speaking. In this situation, we see that the Buddha prioritizes purpose and benefit. Criteria for speaking or not speaking, doing or not doing, the allowable range, and the key. 6th situation. Words that are true, purposeful, valuable, and when spoken, everyone likes and desires to hear. The Buddha encourages such speech. This is the standard of speech and communication. According to the Buddha's teaching, it must meet 3 goals: expressing the truth, having value and benefit, and being something the listener surely enjoys. The tone of the words, the attitude of kindness and harmony must be expressed and coordinated properly. For example, many wives go to the temple to chant sutras, attend retreats, and do volunteer work, but when their husbands ask, they always hide it. When asked, "Where did you go?" they reply, "I went out with friends." When asked why, they respond, "If I tell the truth, they'll scold me." In this situation, we see the truth has a legitimate purpose, but the husband dislikes it. Buddha advises still to speak. Say, "I went to the temple today." When asked which temple, say, "The Anquang Temple." Say, "Today, the temple chanted the Sutra of Merit, teaching about the art of merit-making, living happily for oneself and others." Even if the husband scolds, we should smile because he does not understand. Once he understands, he will sympathize. Difficult husbands eventually realize that if their wives go to nightclubs or gambling dens, it would be worse. Going to the temple is nothing to forbid. Everyone has spiritual needs. Husbands should encourage their wives' faith. Wives should not hide this from their husbands, because they know the truth has a legitimate purpose. And speaking out about good deeds is praiseworthy. Speaking correctly and valuably. The issue is not to speak defiantly. Don't say, "I do what I want, and you can't stop me." We should speak the truth with purpose, but words that are unpleasant to the listener can backfire. A Buddhist once asked me, "A friend lives near a temple, and the temple chants 5 or 6 times a day. Couple is frustrated. They go out around 6 o'clock to avoid the evening chanting. They're afraid to complain to the temple because they think it would be wrong. But if they don't complain, they're annoyed. What should they do?" I replied, "The houses around the Gyakno temple also complained that if the temple doesn't chant, they will file a complaint. Everything becomes a habit. Living near a temple means adapting to spiritual culture. Hearing the sound of bells and chanting, worries fade, wisdom grows, and Bodhi, enlightenment, blossoms, leading one away from hell and out of the furnace. If one doesn't harmonize, doesn't like it, doesn't feel it, sound of chanting becomes a source of frustration, wisdom diminishes, Bodhi fades, and one is closer to hell and further from Bodhi. The only solution is to get used to it and adapt to the environment, eliminating obstacle. In this situation, we speak the truth with purpose. Whether or not the listener likes it, we still speak. Naturally, the listener may appreciate it, but be hesitant to repeat it to others, thinking, "Thich Nhat Tu is just joking. How could houses near the Gyakno temple threaten to file a complaint if the temple doesn't chant?" The truth or the means are not important. What's important is the goodwill on both sides, speaking the truth and speaking with purpose. Whether the listener likes it or not, must be said. That's the situation the Buddha taught. The highest situation, where truth, purpose, and being liked come together. Some people are sparing with their words, not because they are selfish, because they fear speaking. In the Four Noble Truths, the Buddha presented 2 situations using the Eightfold Path. The first situation serves the purpose of personal merit, meaning practicing right view, right thought, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration to seek merit. The Buddha advised lay people to stop at this level, not to be attached to the merit they have created. We should not be content with merit, but continue to work on it. Monastics do not stop at merit, but should direct their minds towards the supreme Bodhi fruit. In the Mahayana Sutras, it is said, doing countless Buddhist activities without directing the mind to Bodhi is considered demonic activity. A Vietnamese overseas Buddhist once said to me, worriedly, "Master, does this mean that all the merit we've accumulated over the decades is demonic work? What should we do now, Master?" Reading sutras without guidance can lead to misunderstanding. This sutra is addressing bodhisattvas, not lay people. The Buddha wants to encourage all arhats to become Buddhas through the bodhisattva path, not to stop at the fruits of their achievement. If we do not direct our minds towards Bodhi to attain Buddhahood, it is considered demonic activity. However, virtuous deeds are virtuous deeds, and how can virtuous deeds be demonic deeds? This statement is a means, not a truth, meant to encourage people to achieve a greater truth, though it is still said. In 2008, when I was teaching in the United States, at Hoa Neam Temple in Washington, D.C., 36 associations condemned me. On some Vietnamese newspapers in the US, Australia, Canada, France, and Europe, they even broadcast on Vietnamese TV 5 to 7 times, each time for a few minutes, claiming that Thich Nhat Tu is a communist. They came to interview me with questions designed to trap me. I have never refused any interview. Whoever asks, I answer. I requested that they not edit, cut, or add, and keep the original text. They promised one thing, but edited it differently, lacking goodwill. They spliced segment A into sentence B into segment A. They avoided the issue, answering out of context, then uploaded it to YouTube to accuse me of being a political puppet in the country, just after the successful 2008 United Nations Vesak celebration in Vietnam. Organizing a commemoration for the Buddha, the spiritual father of Buddhism, and accusing me of being a puppet of the government is utterly absurd. When we say something with purpose, whether people like it or not, the Buddha advises us still to speak. We have nothing to fear. We speak correctly and honorably. If someone labels us, that's their business. The purpose of a monastic is to use right speech in preaching the Dharma, speaking about the profound and wonderful teachings of Buddhism, contribute to making society better. Helping ourselves achieve value, lay people can still use right speech and diplomacy, winning hearts. Of course, we should not use it for negative purposes.